Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me, Honorable Vice Chancellor Naveen ji, yourself, Dr. Vikram Singh ji, and everybody. My greetings to all of you, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak here after the wonderful speech that the Honorable Vice Chancellor has made. So, as we approach Gandhiji's 151st birth anniversary and bring to a close the special celebrations of Gandhiji and Kasturba's 150th birth anniversaries, these lectures will help to raise the many questions. Despite the fact that the Honorable Vice Chancellor has spoken about Bapuji, there are many questions that people are still asking. So some of the questions I have put here: who really were Ba and Bapuji? I call him Bapuji and I refer to Kasturba as Ba. Both of them achieved 150 years. If they were alive, that was their birth anniversary last year. So I talk about both Ba and Bapuji. So the first question is, who were they? The second question is, how are we influenced by their legacies? The third question is, how do we see the world? What perspective do we have about our world? How do we see ourselves within this world? And how do we perceive our role in this expansive space and among the 7.8 billion people of this world? What is my one person's role in that expansive space? So those are some of the questions that confront the youth of today, and all of us as well. We constantly ask ourselves, so what is my role? How important am I? And what can I do as an individual? So these are some of the questions that I want to address today. Many young people grapple with these questions. Thousands of books have been written about Bapuji, expressing thousands of different views about him, entwining him in a complex web, making it difficult to critically fathom who he really was. So people either accept him as a saint and worship him as a superhuman, or they accept him as a villain and go to lengths to trash his image. And we have seen this. There have been lots of critics of Gandhiji, as there are lots of people who praise him. And lots of books have been written. Fortunately, there are very few critics. There are more people who love him and believe in him. But both actions, whether we worship him or we criticize him, were not actions which Gandhiji would have liked. He constantly went to pains to explain that he was a human, and as a human being, he was fallible. He wrote about his mistakes, and he said that I'm not a saint, don't worship me. In his introductions to all his books, he set out clearly that he was learning all the time, and hence he reserves the right to change his views as new vistas are opened and require a change in his previous position. This is an important point because Gandhiji always encouraged people to critically think about things and make up their own minds. Critical thinking was an important part of his philosophy. And so this point that he makes in his books is important because he says he also reserves the right to critical thinking, and when you have critical thinking, you can change. We are changing all the time. So you don't stick to one position simply because you have to be consistent. And Ba, on the other hand, has so little written about her that we tend to forget that she too has left a powerful legacy for us. Her image and her work and many sacrifices, not enforced sacrifices, but ones that she made knowingly and consciously for the freedom of India and to promote good values. For instance, she went to the homes of the villagers and spoke to the women, poverty-stricken women, and drew Bapuji's attention to their plight in Champaran. The Honorable Vice Chancellor spoke about the clothes, absence of having more clothes to change. This is what Ba discovered through her visit in the homes of the poor women in Champaran. She was the one who undertook to address thousands of people gathered to hear Bapuji on the 9th of August 1942, after the Quit India resolution was passed by the Indian National Congress. For this, she was arrested and kept in prison in Aga Khan Palace in Pune, where she passed away, refusing to seek permission to leave the palace to seek medical attention or hospitalization unless Bapuji and all the others were also released. There are many other stories of valor and resilience of this strong-spirited woman, Ba. Yet there are those who relegate her as an oppressed woman without an identity of her own. So I think in this 150th year, we have to restore Ba's identity. Ba had a powerful identity of her own, and therefore it's very important to talk about her, to research her life, and to find out all the things that she did. And all these things have been written about by Bapuji himself. He held her up as a very powerful person. So if you read his book written by him, he has written about Ba. And that's where we get Ba's real image, not as an oppressed person, but her own identity. I have chosen to locate ourselves in the present and find Ba and Bapuji within us in the present context. The present context is in our face. I am speaking to you from 8,250 kilometers away. Just last year, we would not have imagined that we would be using this form of communication. You may have seen me and others in person at your institution amid great celebrations and spending thousands of rupees in the process. We have saved that expenditure. We are seeing each other remotely with little cost. There is no huge crowd and no great feasting. So we realize that we are saving money, which can be diverted to improvement of our own infrastructure or to provide for the needs of the deprived or create jobs for more people. So on the one hand, we lose the joy of being with our friends and enjoying good food and celebrating, but on the other, you see the savings that you have been able to make and what you can do with the scarce funds that we have. All of us are always looking for funds. All of us who work in the NPO sector, non-profit sector. So we have saved that scarce funds. There are countless possibilities as long as we think about the other, not about how we enrich ourselves, but how we can help others. And I'll come back to that point about the other, because that's the point I want to emphasize in this talk. COVID-19 has caused us to reimagine how we communicate. So instead of staying within the classroom context, meeting and being with your friends, we are now regularly communicating with people from all over the world. Besides our students, we are also communicating with other people. So while on the one hand, you have to maintain distance or keep yourself under lockdown conditions, on the other, you are able to see and communicate with people far away, many, many kilometers away. Some may say Bapuji warned us against technology. So would he have used the computer or the cell phone? Let us look back in time to 1930, when Bapuji started the Salt March. Remember that march was filmed in 1930 when we had very little technology. They filmed that Salt March. We have footage of it. I'm sure you have seen it. He constantly sent telegrams, used the telephone. Communication was a key aspect of the success of this march. The whole world was watching this march. The whole world was watching this march. Without the use of innovative communication skills, this campaign would not have gained as much support and momentum as it had. So was this not use of technology which was available at that time? So when people say blindly, Bapuji said, no technology and we shouldn't use it, then we need to think about how Bapuji used technology and what Bapuji exactly was trying to say. Yes, indeed, he did warn us against the abuse of technology, not the use of technology, but the abuse of technology. The abuse of technology would be when we invent machines to replace people, when we are unconscious of the damage that we cause to the environment by building certain technological instruments. When we use technology to amass funds for ourselves, to become millionaires, that is abuse of technology. We create fashion which entices you to buy a new thing every year or every few months because it is fashionable. So you replace your telephone, you replace your TV, you replace your computers and so on. We become consumers by this, and we waste old products. That is why the dictum, reduce, reuse, recycle. That is what environmentalists tell us. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. All this requires technology, not just a will, but a will which we develop when we think of the other. So when we think of the environment, that is the other. When we take the focus from ourselves, how we can get rich, how we can enjoy, how we can do something better, we are taking away that focus to see how other people can enjoy, how we can protect the environment. So we're thinking of the other. Bapuji spoke of the seven sins, and the Honorable Vice Chancellor spoke about it today. So he spoke about commerce without morality. I'm just going to focus on the two, commerce without morality and science without humanity. So when we look at this question of fashion and making people buy things that they don't really need, we are talking about commerce without morality. The present situation of COVID-19 is drawing our attention to our commercial greed and our scientific abuses, which in the first place is the underlying cause of the release of these viruses. And the commercial abuses we see as many businesses put up prices of essential commodities to gain profits. I'm not sure what's happening in India, but here we definitely see that. Food prices suddenly go up because people find that they can now make more money in this situation where things are scarce. Medicine prices go up and so on. So you see that people try to make money at the expense of the poor people, at the expense of the suffering humanity. Instead of looking at cures and how we can help the suffering humanity, we are looking at how we can make money. But if science and technology are used to produce products that help to reduce strenuous tasks from people and help to ease the lives of the workers, then it is not abuse of science. If we are also able to keep environmental damage and pollution to the minimum, that is not abuse. But when we overuse the resources to enrich ourselves and do not think of the other, then it is abuse of technology and science. And it is exploitation of the earth's resources causing damage to the environment. Coronavirus does not discriminate. It does not look for the poor or women or black people or people of lower caste. It enters anybody's body that it comes across. Yet, how the people are affected is discriminatory. So discrimination has been there. It is not something new, but this virus has made it starkly visible. And that discrimination is because how we have constructed our society, where some people have access to the best treatment, whilst other people don't have any access to treatment at all. Some people's lives have not changed, because of this virus, while other people are starving and facing death because of starvation. So as we witness this reality, some are moved by compassion and want to do something to comfort the suffering. The better side of our nature is emerging as we feel the pain of other people. But the virus is persistent, so we need to look for longer term models to remove the suffering. The solution lies in thinking of the other. There is need for universal access to basic quality health care for everyone. Education, food, shelter, water, recreation facilities for everyone. Gandhiji gave us a talisman, and I quote him here. He said, "Whenever in doubt, recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man or woman," I'm saying that, "whom you have seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or her. Will he or she gain anything by it? In other words, will it restore him or her to a control over his or her own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj or freedom for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? Then you will find your doubts and yourself melt away." So that's the talisman that Gandhiji gave. Where this principle of seeing the face of the other has been applied, there we see that the people have been able to control the spread of the virus successfully. It's not far from you. If you look at Kerala, you'll see that they were able to contain the spread of the virus better than any other place. You will see it for yourself. I'm only hearing it from the people that I've spoken to. But I think that it makes sense what they are saying. Good primary health care, this is what they say, would enable people to understand the working of the virus and how we can safeguard ourselves and others around us. We learn about it, understand it, and then we do what is required of us. There is no need for enforcement, no need for policing or punishment, but there is a need for compassion and care for the other, and for united collaborative effort. So if we can all unite, collaborate, and take care of the other, we can overcome the situation. I believe that living under the lockdown conditions of almost the past 8 months, many of us have begun to see the need for change. If we focus on ourselves, which is important, as if we do not care for ourselves, we will not be able to care for others. So yes, we have to look at ourselves. If we look after ourselves, we'll be able to look after others. Bapuji has constantly emphasized the need to keep good health, good mental health as well, and physical health, and also spiritual health. So you take care of your mind, body, and soul. The lockdown can make us feel claustrophobic, suffer cabin fever, allow the growth side of our nature to take over as we begin to get angry and do things and shout at people around us. Or we can use the time to learn good, healthy habits, even in confined spaces. and take care of our bodies and our soul. We can read good books and catch up on our understanding of ourselves and our world. We can look at innovative ways in which we can be of use to other people, even under lockdown conditions. We can begin to think of a new way to look at the world and our place in it, because now we do have the time to think. We are seeing that humankind as a whole needs to change. It can't be back to normal as usual. There has to be a change. Coronavirus is here to stay, and therefore we have to change. There has to be a radical paradigm shift from profit, and profit to compassion, generosity, and positive action for the benefit of the other. We have seen the human generosity emerge in the past 8 months. We have seen suffering and dependency, loss of dignity, and diminished self-image as people lose their livelihoods, their jobs, and in some cases their homes. Some, of course, have unscrupulously taken advantage of the situation to amass wealth for themselves. These are the ones who think only of themselves, but they will soon realize that such a life is fraught with misery. True happiness lies in doing good for the other, which is what Bapuji has emphasized throughout his life. In considering the relevance of Bapuji's teachings in the context of COVID-19, we see who really were Ba and Bapuji. They gave all they had to the community. They gave their lives to the community, but they also enjoyed life. They walked every morning and evening to keep fit. They had communal prayers every morning and evening to keep their faith in God and feed their spirituality. They also had time for their family, people in the ashram, animals in the ashram, and work in the ashram and the community. They were available to the community and listened to the problems they faced and helped to solve the problems through innovative ways. Example, starting the spinning industry, which the Honorable Vice Chancellor spoke about, and making it viable, encouraging good agricultural practice to make that viable so that we have food security for the people. This is very important, and we realize it now, that if you have good food, good nutrition, you can also fight the coronavirus in your body. That's why many people are able to survive the coronavirus. And through introducing the manufacture of agricultural products, so not just planting products, but how you can convert these products into other products which you can also sell. So the secondary industry, just as you grow cotton and then you begin to produce material, you spin, and all those things. So all those steps. And they obtain the help of people, specialists, of learned people, people with skills such as Sri Kumarapaji, to understand better how the economy works and how they can scientifically make a village viable and improve the lives of people, village by village, in a sustainable way. So that is what you are doing, and Bapuji's ideas will help you in what you are doing. These ideas are contained in Bapuji's little booklet called Constructive Program, which is what he engaged in for the better part of his life. These legacies remain important and highly relevant if we change our thinking from self-centered to other-centered. That's the paradigm shift that we need to make. Doing good for the other, working for the benefit of the other, taking care of the other, seeing the face of the other, and thinking of the other as we plan our lives. This is the shift that is necessary as we go forward, and as we are confronted with the prospect of ensuring the future of our fragile planet and its people. Coronavirus and other viruses are here to stay. If we develop our own knowledge, we can help to stop abuses through our knowledge. Knowledge is power, and each person counts in the development of knowledge and of improving our environment. So within the 7.8 billion people of this world, you and I count. Let us remember that what we say, what we do, counts. We are not minute. Don't think of yourself as a little piece in this huge universe. We are armed with the message of goodwill for the other. This is what Bapuji taught us, and let us remember this as his legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. With your permission, may I post a couple of questions to you which our audience have asked?
Yeah.
First question.
Vikram.
Sir.
Vikram, regarding participants, you may ask and allow Professor A.P. Mishra to ask his question.
Professor A.P. Mishra is online?
Yes. He is online, so you continue. He will ask.
Okay. The first question is by Dr. Anil Kumar. He is saying that your talk is giving the impression that the current global politico-economic regimes have very cleverly secluded Gandhi into books and ideas. So he's asking how to bring him back to masses, to the heart and behavior of people at the helm of affairs.
Okay, thank you for that question, because yes, that is the paradigm in which we are at the present moment. And that's the paradigm that I'm saying that we need to shift. And the only way we can do it is by each one of us beginning to think. Think critically. Don't accept what other people are giving you. Don't accept I said at the beginning of my talk that there are many, many books written on Gandhiji. Each one has given their perspective of Gandhiji. We develop our own perspective. We must begin to look at it and develop your perspective. Think of who you are. What is your role in the universe right now? And how we can make a difference in the universe. Just as Bapuji made a difference, we can, each one of us, make a difference. And if you start first with yourself and carry on in your university with your students. Help your students to become critical thinkers, not just because you are telling them, but become critical thinkers, because when they become critical thinkers, they will be able to confront challenges in the future. And there are always many challenges that we face in our lives, because there are many critics, there are many people who give different views, You need to be able to justify your view or be able to accept, yes, I didn't think of it that way. I think you are right. There's no harm in doing that if you think that the other person is right. But it is your choice. It is your determination whether you accept or you reject the other point of view. That is what we need to develop today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
I
you,
hope
ma'am, for
that
that.
answers the question.
Yeah. Sarbeswar Sahu, Gandhiji was very particular about food and health. What sorts of food he would have advised to fight with corona in a world using fertilizer and pesticides everywhere to grow food?
Well, look, I'm not a scientist, and I can't give you a very scientific view. But I can tell you from my own experience because I grew up in Bapuji's ashram. My parents were Gandhians to the core, and they brought us up. And in our ashram, we said no pesticide. There are other ways of dealing with pesticides, like you grow biodiversity. There are plants that are used to remove pesticides. So some plants, when they grow alongside other plants, they keep the pests away. And so yes, we used to make our own compost. Recycling waste material. That was one of Bapuji's very, very important feature, at Phoenix Settlement. He learned this. And he learned the value of soil, of clay soil, which he used all the time. If you read his books about how he treated his children, because I was treated in the same way by my parents, where if I got ill, they used this soil, clay soil, to put little poultices on. So those are some of the things in terms of environmental food cultivation, waste management. So all those things revolve into a unity which Gandhiji had created at Phoenix. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, ma'am. That's a very detailed answer, and we are very lucky to get some of the insights from your childhood memories as well. That brings us closer to Bapu, and we are privileged ones. We have one more question from Mr. Kapil Dev Kuderia. It's a slight offset question, but he says, Gandhiji has always taught us about non-violence, and he himself has practiced the same his entire life. But in today's perspective, we every day listen to the news of violence. So he is asking, how does non-violence help us in our daily life?
I think, for me and the way my parents taught me, non-violence is not just an act of being non-violent. It is a way of living, a non-violent lifestyle. So you begin to look at how do you live, and everything that you do from morning to evening has to be within that non-violent. It's a whole paradigm within which non-violent lifestyle is located. So, simple things you can do which is violence, like, ignoring poverty, like ignoring other person's pain and suffering and only looking at yourself, or like wasting food, wasting other things. Recycle, reuse, and reduce. That is important. Bapuji didn't say it in those words, but that is what he practiced. And so all those things build up a culture of nonviolence. So for me, non-violence is not just the using of gun or creating war or hitting somebody, but it is a lifestyle. And if everybody begins to change their lifestyle, will there be a need for war? If you love each other and you work together and everybody is happy, why would there be a need for war? Why would there be need for violence? So that is how Gandhiji looked at it. Change your lifestyle, change your thinking.
Thank you.
Build a new culture.
Yeah.
Allow
Professor A.P. Mishra is here. We have one more question from Dr. Hariharan. Based on Gandhian principles, how to solve cross-border issues around the world, which spend billions of dollars to protect the national borders?
We have done, this year is also the, besides being the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, it's also the year when we call for abolition of nuclear weapons. Right at this stage, we are talking about nuclear weapons. But in Africa, there are groups that are talking about no more arms in the country. So there are many issues about arms and armament. And if you look at the amount, they have done their arithmetic and they found trillions of rands that you can save only if you abolish nuclear weapons and its proliferation as well as its maintenance. If that money is diverted to creating a sustainable development goals for everybody in this world, if everybody has access to food, housing, schooling, healthcare, and so on, will there still be cross-border fighting? It's a long-term thing. In the present, maybe that will happen. But this time, United Nations was created because they felt that the world countries, the 5 main countries of the world, felt that instead of war, we should negotiate a settlement. That was the reason for United Nations to be formed. So why aren't we using those methods now? Why are we using war? And why are we using those cross-border, attacks? One country has to start, and one person has to start, and it rolls. So every human being is counted.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. May I request Professor A.P. Mishra to ask the question to madam?
Sir, unmute yourself and ask. Sir,
kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Okay. Disconnected. So ask your question. He had posted
okay.
a question.
Yeah, the question from Dr.
Yes, he's there.
Can I proceed, Vikramji?
Yes, sir. Please.
Thank you. Good evening, Ela Gandhi, madam. Very enlightening lecture by you, and we get many informations, valuable thoughts about Gandhiji that is very relevant to COVID-19 periods. I have if not question, but I just want to your view on, because it was most debated nowadays that in a gender perspective, the relationship between Ba and Bapu and the next generations in 21st century, what kinds of the opinion you have about the relationship between them, Bapu and Ba, because nowadays we have a lot of discussions, and we are seeking to a new paradigms for the relationship between the men and women. So it's my not question, but your opinion. What kinds of the opinion you draw from the relationship between the Bapu and Ba, and what kinds of the relevance today it has nowadays when our society, especially the women, try to seek a new alternative for their lives and for their security. So kindly give some lights on this issue. Thank you, madam.
Okay. Again, as I say, very little has been written about Ba. So what I am saying is what I have learned from my parents and some of the things Bapuji wrote himself. So what I see in that relationship is firstly that from the time they got married, and they got married at age 13. So from that time, Ba was very much an individual of her own. She had her own thoughts, and she wasn't prepared to just listen to Bapuji and obey. You know, today we bring up our daughters to say that you have to obey your husband, or that's how life is. Women have to obey all the time. But Ba, in that time, remember what, it was the late 19th century when many women didn't even have a vote. But Ba was able to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to listen. I want to go out and I will go out. You can do whatever you want. And she did. So the first thing is that Ba was able to assert herself, not disrespectfully, not fighting, but in a very assertive way. She was confident of herself, of her strength, and, very firm way, she said that this is what I am going to do. So that is the one thing on the one hand. The second thing is that mutual respect is very important. This is what Bapuji found out in a hard way, because initially he got angry. He wasn't able to control his anger because he expected her to listen to him. He was brought up to think that she must listen to him. And this is the sort of vision he had, that a man is superior to the woman. And that is how he behaved. But she is the one who taught him that this is not how you behave. And he changed over that period. Through experience, he changed. And towards the end, he said that a good relationship, sound relationship, which Ba and Bapuji enjoyed, was a relationship of mutual respect. When Ba passed away, he said, the better half of me is now gone. That is what Bapuji said. My better half has now left. So, yeah.